The theme for tonight, though, is respect of life. The Pope before the Pope now, Pope John Paul II, used to use the expression that we live today in a culture of death. Now that sounds kind of morbid, doesn't it? Sounds kind of negative. But what our Holy Father, what John Paul knew or was saying was that it seems that the culture in which we live today seems to solve its problems or issues by choosing death. And when you stop and think, or choosing hate, or choosing something that isn't life-giving, and when you plug in some of life issues, you can see how true our Holy Father, how profound that statement is. And you're in that culture, and you probably don't even realize that. Well, for example, if someone commits a terrible crime, there's a couple of choices that can be made. One can be they go to jail, maybe go to jail for life. Or what is becoming more popular in our culture today is kill them. Death penalty. He did something bad, did something awful, maybe he murdered someone, took someone else's life. How do we solve this problem? Take his life. Or if there is a disagreement, an argument between people, there's a couple of choices that you can make. You can choose to try to speak with the person, try to come to an agreement, or if you can't stand the person, take him out, kill him. Sounds very odd, you're saying I would never do that, but the culture that we live in today seems to lean towards death as a solution to problems or issues. An older person who has lived many years and now is slowly dying. Solution: try to support this person, have their last days of comfort and peace, or, as is a movement in our culture today that they call physician-assisted suicide. Plug them into something, let them die. They're going to die anyhow. This isn't, make-up stories, folks. This is what's happening in this culture. The unplanned, I even hate to use the word unwanted, pregnancy. The girl's very young. Certainly they weren't intending to have a baby. Do we take responsibility, that person, those two? Perhaps, if they're too young to raise the child, find a home for that child. There are many families that don't have children and want to have children. or just go kill the baby with abortion. It's a choice, and you're told we're in America, so you should be able to choose whatever you want to do. But the question becomes, is our culture influencing us so much that the choices we make are choices of death? To solve a problem, to fix a mistake, to punish somebody, to get rid of somebody. That's what Pope John Paul II saw when he looked at our society today. And the reason why he said that was because he wanted to remind us as followers of Christ that the gospel that Jesus gave to us is a gospel of life. When Christ came to this earth, you know, Bethlehem, the whole thing we just went through now, Christmas, he came to bring us life. He came to open up eternal life to us. So Jesus's life was so that we would have life. And as followers of Christ, you and I are called to live in this culture, but to transform this culture with our ideas and with our choices, with our decisions, with the way we live our life. And so tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to a couple of, we're going to approach this life issue from a couple of different perspectives. We could approach it from many different perspectives. Even when we talk about bullying today. You hear that enough, don't you? Is the choices that we make to bully someone, is that life-giving, or is that taking away life? What was that? It's all about this life and death, this culture of life, culture of death, and being followers of the gospel of life. It's on big levels, and we're going to talk about it today in respect of human life, the unborn child, in respect for your own life, that each one of us is made in the image and likeness of God, and just like snowflakes, there's no two of us alike. No one can ever replace you. And the billions and billions, I don't know how many humans have walked this earth. I don't know what the number is. But there's no one that's been identical to you. Even identical twins. Even identical twins might look alike. But the identical twins I know, they're two different people. So there's no one person that can ever take your place. Never before or never after you. Do we respect that gift of who you are? Probably right now, you might say, I'm this, I'm a mess, I'm that. Well, we're going to move through that. But the first step in moving towards a greater respect of self is respecting God who created you and brought you into existence with the assistance of your parents. So respect of life, which is our theme tonight, yes, we're going to talk about respect of the child in the womb and not making that choice of abortion. We're going to talk about self-respect and respecting others and respecting the gift of life that God has given to us. But keep in mind that this subject is so much bigger than what we can do in one night. Because it talks about everything from the moment of conception to right to the end of natural human life. And everything that's between those two. There's that story told about the most important thing on your tombstone isn't your name. And in fact, because you know my father passed away last year, we have a grave. And I'm going to be buried with my parents, and we already put the names on the tombstone. So when I go visit my father's grave, underneath his name and my mother's name is my name. And someone told me once, the most important thing on that tombstone is not your name, not the day you were born, or the date of birth, or the date of death. It's the dash in the middle. What you did with your life between that birth and your death. Because in that dash defines if you were a person who respected the life that God gave you, and the choices and decisions, did you respect the gift of life? So the dash you all live in right now, you put in the concrete by the choices and decisions you make. And there really is only two. You either choose life or you choose death. And as followers of Christ, followers of his gospel, we are called to be people of life. So tonight as we do this, just kind of keep that in mind, not only for the presentations tonight, but then to extend it into every choice that you make. How you care for yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually. Does it bring life to you, or is it causing death? Not practicing your faith. Is that life-giving, or is that causing your faith to slowly die? Not taking care of yourself physically. Is that promoting life, or is that slowly could be a consequence leading to death? Abuse of things, drugs, alcohols. Is that giving life, or is it walking the path towards death? It's one or the other. So try to plug in tonight not only just what these presentations are about, but the dash in your life, and how you're choosing life and death.
If we could, just before we break up, if we could pray the words that our Father taught us, so that tonight our Lord will be with us as we hear some sensitive materials. Lord, be with us in our mind, body, and spirit, so that what we hear tonight hopefully may not only help ourselves, but more importantly, perhaps it will allow you to help a friend or another teen that may be struggling today. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Okay, because they're sensitive topics, and this is a very large group, what we're going to be doing tonight is we're going to be breaking the groups up into two. You teachers know which building you're going to begin with. So in just a moment, half the group is going to come over to the Rose Garden and hear my presentation. The other half of the group is going to stay here, and we have Mrs. Hughes and Mrs. Coffey. They're going to be talking about life issues here, respecting life. I'll be talking about suicide next door. Like I say, both very sensitive topics, but at the same time, we're here to answer your questions. We want you to get the right information. We want you to be able to leave tonight knowing that you have some resources and some valid information that not only may save a life in here, may save a life outside of here. Okay? I just ask that in the two presentations that everybody really listens hard tonight, and avoid those distractions that may keep you from hearing what we all need to hear. Okay? Because if you're being distracted to someone, they may be missing out on some information that they really need to hear tonight.
As Father Steve and Mr. Cahill already told you, my name is Mrs. Hughes, and I'm here with Mrs. Cordy. And we're doing a presentation on respect and dignity of life. Father mentioned John Paul, our last Pope, how he called what we're living in a culture of death. And in his way to try and teach us the value of life, he wrote a book, and it's in all the languages across the world, and some of you might be familiar with it. It is called The Gospel of Life. And it's a Catholic vision of the dignity of the human person. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. We've heard that a lot lately because we've just finished the Christmas season. That God came and lived among us. He took our form. He became a person. He lived. He was born. And he suffered and died. He shared in our birth. He shared in our death. And our destiny is to share in his resurrection. One thing I always wanted to start with when I speak to a group of people your age, I really am very thankful to be up here to share this information with you. And I really think you also should be thankful because Father Steve and Mr. Cahill and your whole team has realized that you're growing up and you're entering the world. In a few years, you'll actually be voting. And you need to know facts. If you are going to make decisions, adult decisions, you need to know the facts. And yes, we're talking about the life and dignity of the human person. And with that, I know that you have slogans in your head. And I'm asking you right now to put them out of your head and listen to what we're going to present to you with an open mind and an open heart. Again, we see the picture of John Paul, and you can read the quote, don't say it real. The denial of the dignity of a human person, you're denying the image of God. This human person, no matter what stage, no matter where they are, have rights and the dignity that God gave us. And no government, no person, no society group, nobody can take that dignity away from the human person. We are all made in the image and likeness of God. We say as Catholics that God is our origin and God is our destiny. We read in the Old Testament from the book of Jeremiah. Jeremiah lived probably 2,000 years even before Christ. And God had a plan for Jeremiah, just like he has a plan for everybody. Because he had a plan for Jeremiah 2,000 years ago, it also means that he has a plan for each and every one of us. And he said to Jeremiah, before I formed you in the womb, he didn't say when you were born or when you were in the womb, but even before that, I knew you. I had a plan for you. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So our destiny comes, our origin comes from God. Our origin, that he knew us from the beginning of time. God waited for us, as he waits for every person in history and all people to come. God has waited for us. And then our destiny is to return to God. Our destiny, as Christ told us, that in his Father's house in heaven, there are many rooms. And when he rose from the dead, he told his apostles that he was going back there to prepare these rooms for everybody. So God is really looking for us to live our life, to follow him, and to come back to him, our origin and our destiny. When I start with Jeremiah, we're going to start and say, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So what actually happens with this forming in the womb? How is this person human? Every one of us gets 23 genes, 23 chromosomes from our dad and 23 from our mother. At fertilization, when the sperm and the egg unite, two cells become one. You have been formed. Nobody knew it, but God knew it. You were formed in secret. At that point, when you are no bigger than a dot at the end of a sentence, I know what you're looking at now doesn't look human, but it's human. It's all our human cells. That dot at the end of the sentence, just that little dot. Everything that you have happened then. Your DNA was formed then. The fact that you were going to be male or female happened then. The fact that you were going to have blonde hair, dark hair, brown eyes, blue eyes, green eyes, gray eyes, it all happened then. And even how tall you might be in your adult life, your whole makeup happened at conception. The only thing that needs to be added now is time to grow and nutrition. It's all there. I was going to ask for a volunteer because, okay, see this little guy? I know the people at back can't. I was going to ask you just to hold him up and carry him. This is 10 weeks. Once conception started, just hold him. Can you walk down and show everybody? Yeah, can't see him. Once conception started, it took only a few days for this dot at the end of the sentence to become this tiny little child right now that our friend is carrying around. And that's an exact size of a baby at 10 weeks old. 10 weeks. You were that little. Hard to believe that you were. Thank you. This is about the same. It's a baby. Maybe you can see it a little better up here. At 1 month. We had a little dot at the end of a sentence, and now this tiny little guy has grown an inch. Would anybody else like to carry the poster to the back? Yes. By the time this child is 22 days old, your mom probably didn't even know she was pregnant with you yet. You had a heartbeat. Your heart was formed. By 28 days, it was definitely beating. There's a question between the 22 and the 28, but you had a heartbeat. You were the dot at the end of the sentence only 28 days ago. And now there you are, an inch with a heartbeat. This child is not free from being aborted. This little baby should be safe in his mother's womb, but our Supreme Court has decided that abortion is legal in all stages. I know you can see this one. This is a baby at 7 months. Exactly the size of a 7-month-old baby in its mother's womb. This baby can be aborted. He is not safe. 2 more months he'll be born. He'll be living outside of his mother's womb, but he is not safe. And that goes for the whole 9 months. Even towards the end of the 9 months, when the child is really, really ready to be born. I know as you look at here at the models, you saw probably in the beginning the word fetus. And fetus is something I really want to discuss with you, because we use words sometimes. And the words that we're using, we're not thinking about what it means. I can say to you, this little baby He's 20 weeks old in his mother's womb. But if I stood here and called him a fetus in utero, would you know what I was talking about? You would? A lot of people don't. Fetus is a very correct word, the medical term for a baby in mother's womb. The uterus is mother's womb. So we can use these words that say, the fetus in utero, and we say, great, I don't know what a fetus in utero is. So because you don't know, you're not respecting the dignity and life of this person. So we will call this our baby in the mother's womb. I have a poster, probably ask for another volunteer. This is a 5-month-old baby. Yes, I'm going to throw it in. Thank you. And I'd like you to look very closely at this picture. This baby at 5 months is not safe from being aborted, but this baby looks very much like a newborn baby, acts very much like a newborn baby. This baby will move in his mother's womb. He will yawn. He will sleep. He will wake. And as you can see in that poster, he's even sucking his thumb. So I have a little poem that goes. Thank you. If he is not alive, why is he growing? If he is not a human being, what kind of being is he? If he is not a child, why is he sucking his thumb? If he is a living human child, why is it safe to kill? Why is it okay to kill him? That's a question I've been asking myself, and probably other people, Mrs. Garden, and I, for a real long time, because I know I'm jumping ahead, Mrs. Garden. Because it's a decision that came out of the Supreme Court back in 1973. Okay. In 1973, the Supreme Court decided that it was okay and throughout this country to abort children. Abortion was not legal in every state. About 5 states had it. But they now said it was okay. Why did the court do this? I really don't know. Did the court have this information about fetal development? Oh, yes, they did. And there was a very renowned doctor at that time, a French doctor, Dr. Lejeune, and he did a lot of research on the development of a baby and the stages, and his work was presented before the court. But it was decided that abortion would be okay. And the reasons that were used were the reasons you're probably thinking of. Doesn't a woman have the right to do what she wants to do with her body? This baby is not her body. This baby has his own heartbeat, his own brain waves, as you can tell, his own little body. It's not her body. He is made in the image and likeness of God. It's not okay to abort him. And I know Mrs. Carvey has a thing out in the Word became flesh and lived among us. Christ became us, and he lived among us. I was also going to share with you a story of 2 people I knew. I volunteered at Birthright for a long time, and Birthright was an organization that really helped people, women who found themselves pregnant, and it wasn't where they wanted to be at this point in their life, but they needed help. So I worked there, and unfortunately Birthright is gone now from the Attleboro area, but Abundant Hope has come in. So there's still a place for a woman or girl to go. But my two friends are Jessica and Beth. I met Jessica because she happened to be a speaker for one of our sessions at Birthright. They brought in speakers. Jessica was young. She was probably about 20 at the time. And she told her story about how, she came from a Catholic family and she was teaching religious education, and it turned out that she got pregnant. She decided that the way to handle this was to have an abortion. And her family actually supported her. So she had the abortion, and that evening when she came home, her brother looked at her and said, "I can't believe that you actually killed your child." That was reality for her. She never thought of it before. Nobody ever said it. Jessica became very depressed. When she was speaking to us, she was a very sad and depressed young woman. She didn't like herself at all. And she was still grieving and crying for her baby that she had aborted. She was speaking with a group, and the group of people, women, they were called Women Exploited by Abortion. They are now called Silent No More. And it's a group of women who said, they were not told the truth about an abortion. They were not told the stage of development of their baby or the fact that it was a baby. Maybe they should have known, but in their own depression and their own denial, they didn't. And nobody helped them any other way. So when they went to the abortion clinic, the abortion was performed. The other person I'm talking about is my friend Bev. When I first met Bev, we were both pregnant with our third child. And eventually got to know her better, and we became friends. And I learned that Bev's third child was really her fourth child. She had had a child, again, herself when she was 17. Bev was actually raped on her date, and she conceived to have a child. Bev gave her child life. She ended up giving her baby up for adoption, but she gave her son life. She knew she had a son. She knew he was happy and living someplace. She grieved. She grieved for the loss of her baby because she was not seeing him and holding him. But he had life. So between the two women, Jessica and Bev, even though they grieved, Beth was joyful. Where Jessica reminded me more of the story in the Bible when we hear about Rachel weeping because her children are no more. Her children were probably murdered by a king at the time. So we have Rachel weeping because her children are no more. But Beth knew her child was someplace. And the funny thing with her was, as I knew her, she would always say, "Oh, this is Bertie, he's 10 years old today. Do you think, blah, blah, blah. Oh, today he's 16. Do you think he's driving a car?" And she always prayed that someday she would meet him. And to make a long story short, he did search for her, and they eventually did meet. She had so much more than Jessica did. Even though she had the pain of giving up her baby, and she knew he was alive, and he was someplace, growing and striving. In that reason, I'm going to go to the family. The reason Bev gave up her child was her decision. Other women I know have been single moms and they kept their children. But she could not do this. She could not give him a family. She could not give him a dad. She said he deserved a father. And in our Catholic teaching, the family is protective. A child, when a child is born, should have a mom and a dad and a family. This is God's plan. He created man and woman to be co-creators with him, but in a family. I was talking once that I went down to Washington, and there were marching down there in Washington to remember that this is an unjust law. And there are a lot of young people walking there, marching, and I was very impressed with them. They're carrying signs, and some of them said, "We are a pro-life generation." I feel that my generation was far from pro-life, because my generation, the generation before, gave us abortion. It's in your court now, really, when you go out, when you go to college, when you vote. You need to know the facts. What are you going to do? If you go off to college and your roommate tells you that she's pregnant, how are you going to support her? What's the decision? What's the decision we can live with? We know that by the end of 8 weeks, everything is overwhelmingly there. It's a life. With a heartbeat, with brain waves, everything. All that right now is needed is time to grow. The other sign that, I'll go this first, we have the new human being. At the first moment of fertilization and conception, we are who we are. It's a human life. Think about it. How can it not be human? If you have a human mom and a human dad, how can you not be human? It's a living cell. This cell, this one cell, multiplies and divides and moves down the woman's fallopian tubes into the womb. It's moving, it's growing, it's multiplying, it's multiplying. It's a living cell. It's a living person. If it was dead, it wouldn't be multiplying and growing. You are unique, like Father Steve said. There's nobody ever in the course of the world who's ever been like us, never will be again. When God created us, He had a plan for us. You don't know who you're going to touch in life and how it's going to go and who you might help or what you might do. Who knows, you might be the scientist who discovers the cure for cancer. But God has a plan. We are all valued. As Father Steve started to say, we were talking about the development of a child. But in our society now, there are things such as assisted suicide, euthanasia, where, hey, you know, you're old, you're sick, whatever, you're going to die in a few months, why don't you do it sooner than later? God decided that. God gave us our life. The very first gift God ever gave us was our life. And He knows when our life should end, not us. God made us stewards of our life. He didn't make us owners. So we are to care for our lives, respect our lives, and remember the dignity that God gave us. Up there's Project Rachel. Project Rachel was founded in the Catholic Church because, unfortunately, there are 4,000 abortions performed in this country today. 4,000. And many women, after the fact, have found themselves depressed. And to tell you the truth, many men. Because you as a guy, you could know that, you know, this baby is yours. But the Supreme Court said it was women who decide. So you have no say in it. You need to be responsible. You need to be careful. You need to think about that. Do you ever want to think that you're going to be a father and you have no say in what happens to this child? So Project Rachel was founded so that women can really go, like Jessica, and find forgiveness. And through the whole time I knew Jessica, she said how she did go to a Project Rachel, and she went to a priest and she went to confession. And the priest told her that God forgave her. There's nothing that God won't forgive. and he has forgiven her, and she needs to forgive herself. And she said she cannot forgive herself. That's pretty sad and that's pretty depressing, that this young woman now cannot even forgive herself. We have spoken about John Paul, and John Paul, he really liked young people, and he spoke to people, young people, all the time, even at World Youth Days. And I have a quote from him, and it happened in 1999 when he was in St. Louis, and he was talking to you guys, to you youth. Are you ready for what Christ wants of you now? He wants all of you to be the light of the world. To all American Catholics, to be unconditionally pro-life and taking stands against abortion, euthanasia, assisted suicide, capital punishment, anything now that goes against the dignity of the human person. Christ wants us to take that stand. You need to know the facts if you're going to take that stand. Not always going to be easy. And you might find that you're the only one there, the only voice there saying, hey, wait a minute, this is a life. Well, everybody else around you say, well, it's her right to choose. You know, she can do what she wants with her body. And you're saying, this is a life. That won't be easy. I remember once when I was talking to a group of young people, they asked me what they could do because they were young. And I would say, pray. Pray and know the facts, because both not really going to be in my court. It's going to be in yours. As you meet people who unfortunately might become pregnant before they want to be. Right now, there's a picture, and that's an ultrasound picture, and I know you can't see it, but right now, there's a small little person in there developing. And when you say, it's okay to take that life, you're saying it's okay to kill her. That life in the ultrasound picture is the 2-year-old. This picture here, all these little cute little babies, all in their little jammies. One's missing because we said it was okay to take that baby's life. It's not okay. This is a life in the dignity of God. When I was in Washington also, there was a lot of young people, like I said. There was a group carrying a sign, and their sign said, a life is a life no matter how small. And I know where you know that quote is from books that you read when you were little kids from Dr. Seuss. A life is a life no matter how small. And if you take it another step, a life is a life no matter how small, no matter how old, no matter how handicapped, no matter how sick. Our life is a life. C.S. Lewis once said that the holiest thing that you will encounter today is the Eucharist. If you went down to church right now, that's the holiest thing that you would encounter today, is the Holy Eucharist. Next to the Holy Eucharist, the next holy thing is us. Us people formed in His image. I don't know if anybody has a question. Father also talked about the death penalty, and we have a picture here of John Paul. And as you might remember, somebody tried to assassinate the Pope. and the man was in prison. And John Paul, being so merciful and knew that God's mercy extended to this man who tried to kill him, went to visit him in prison. So God's mercy extends to everybody. And that's why the church, again, when they're looking at the death penalty, is God's mercy and the dignity of the person. I know that's a tough area for some people, and that's really not what I'm here to talk about, because that's a whole different ballgame. But it's something to consider yourself, that we are considering the human person. And God works in His own time. And if we put somebody to death in the death penalty, you maybe didn't give them enough time to find forgiveness, to turn to God? Who knows? And we are a society that can lock our prisoners up. We don't have to really worry. So that's really where the death penalty is coming from. The church is really trying to teach us the dignity and respect of the human life. But again, I will tell you that the human life forms at conception. So if anybody tries to tell you different and tries to tell you that science doesn't know, this is science. Science knows. Science knows that life begins at conception. This question about abortion, will it go away? What is the foundation? What certainties are we building our lives on? We need to build our lives on the truth and the facts. Not some slogan that sounds good and you want to go around quoting. We need to build it on facts. The truth will set you free. Freedom is truth. Without God, we can end up as a society that goes against man. That's quite a quote. If we put God out of our lives, what kind of a society are we becoming? And again, I say to you that God is our origin and God is our destiny. And go back to Jeremiah. And Jeremiah has this word from God. And Jeremiah is considered to be probably around your age when he heard this calling from God. And he said, "Oh Lord, I do not know how to speak. I am too young." But the Lord answered me and said, "Do not say I am too young. To whomever I send you, you shall go, and whatever I command you, you shall speak. Do not be afraid of them, for I am with you to deliver you." God is saying that right now to us. Say that you're not too young, because you're not too young. You need to know facts. You need to get them right. You need to be able to defend life. You're not too young. Again, I said in a few short years you'll be voting, you'll be in college, you'll be facing a lot of these issues. And you need to be strong. You need to know the facts. But you also need to know that God is with you. He will help you. He will probably do the speaking. You might even find that you'll say something to somebody and really surprised that you said it. And it really came from God. Because you were in that situation at that time where God wanted you to be. It is not the woman's body. It's a unique human being. Any point during the pregnancy, this child can be aborted. I'm going to ask somebody, go. I have the same people. What about over here? Go ahead then. 8 months. Oh, well, we got another volunteer over here. Go ahead. 8 months. Look at the baby in its mother's womb. Full fully formed. You can see that his eyes are open. He sleeps, he wakes, he dreams. He can actually hear his mother's voice. Do you ever wonder if you ever held a newborn baby and it starts crying? And, you know, gosh, I'm going to give this baby back to its mother. And the mother instinctively puts the baby on her left shoulder. And it seems like the baby calms down. The baby knows his mother's heartbeat. Thank you. So when he's back in his mother's arms, he knows her. He is comfortable now with her. This baby, who knows his mother's heartbeat, a human being, made in the image and likeness of God, is not free from being aborted. And like those young people in Washington, I hope and pray for you that you too can say, a person's a person no matter how small. I'd like to end just with a prayer. And it's a prayer again from John Paul. John Paul just was amazing. He so wanted to lead us in the gospel of life. And his prayer says, "O Mary, bright dawn of the new world, mother of the living, to you do we entrust this cause of life. Look down, O mother, upon the vast numbers of babies not allowed to be born, of the poor whose lives are made difficult, of men and women who are victims of brutal violence, of the elderly and the sick killed by the indifference or out of misguided mercy. Grant that all who believe in your Son may proclaim the gospel of life with honesty and love. To the people of our time, obtain for them grace to accept that gospel as a gift ever new, the joy of celebrating it, gratitude throughout their lives, and the courage to bear witness and to resolve to order to build a people of goodwill, a civilization of truth and love, where we can praise and glory to God, the Creator and Lover of life." So I thank you, and if there are any questions, I don't know, but I think it's probably time to go. Thank you.
The doctors insisted she should abort this baby. She was very faithful. She was very dedicated. She said, "No, she said, this baby could be sick. It could kill you. You need to abort this baby." I'm not going to do it. This is God's gift to me. That person was Tim Tebow. How about that? All right? So, you know what? It's at that moment, like what this man did through his life. How much fun, how much entertainment has he given to us? How much of God has he brought to the world? And when he was in his mother's womb, those doctors begged her to abort that baby, and she was faithful. So you just have to think of that. Every life matters. All right, thanks.
One quick thing before we get started. Quick question. Let's see if anyone can get the answer. Remember during the retreats, we made the bracelets with the different color beads? Does anybody remember what the light blue bead represented? Close. It's very, very close. It's about our life. It's about our life. And the reason why I say it's very close is that light blue bead represented, light blue or turquoise, that we're a precious gem in God's eyes. And we constantly hear that we're unique and we were made in the image and likeness of God. But remember that bead, that you are a precious gem. No matter what anyone else says to you, or if someone puts you down or you're not feeling good about yourself, God loves you. God made you, each and every one of us. And no matter what we do in life, no matter how alone sometimes we may feel, you're always going to be that precious gem in God's eyes, and you're never going to be alone. And as we talk about suicide tonight, which isn't the most pleasant topic to hear about, but it's an extremely important topic. And it's something that I wish we didn't have to talk about. But 3 years ago, when we decided to do this for the first time, I will never forget, a couple days before I was ready to present everything that I had together, you know what happened? The whole story about Phoebe Prince broke out, and how she was the girl from South Hadley that was bullied to the point that she felt worthless, and nobody cared about her, and she took her own life. And after that happened, you heard all these wonderful things about Phoebe, how she was great in sports, how everybody loved her, her personality was one of a kind, she was an honest student, but yet her whole character, what she felt inside, her esteem got so low that she felt she was worthless. And I wish I could say, you know, because of that, bullying doesn't exist. Sometimes the good comes out of something bad, and thankfully a lot of people have been trained in many different areas as far as suicide and bullying and so forth. But yet, Friday when I got the Mansfield News, what's the first thing I saw that's happening in Mansfield this week? Ryan's story. Another story about bullying and someone's life being, you know, harmed by teens. So tonight, my goal is to hopefully help you with some things that either you can help yourself, but more importantly, perhaps point out some things that rather reading another story about suicide or bullying and someone feeling that low, that you can be that disciple, that person that is there to show them the love that they need. And just like when we read in Matthew, in chapter 28, about being disciples and going out and teaching all nations. Hopefully after tonight you will have some information and a few points to hopefully remember when you see that person that's struggling and when they're feeling down and they need someone to put out that hand. Rather than look the other way, you can help. Now I think with teens, there's a lot of myths out there in regards to suicide. And who can tell me what a myth is? Anyone? Something not real. Very good. Get all the answers. Okay. Well, I got a couple myths up here that I want to read to you, so that you know that these things aren't real. And these are teen myths, not things that adults come up with. Nothing could have stopped them once they decided to kill themselves. It's not true. If someone's thinking about killing themselves, anyone in this room could be that person that helps them and prevents that from happening. The person who feels that suicide the first time will eventually succeed. You know, sometimes people may make an attempt on suicide almost as a cry for help. And then that happens, they get the help they needed, and they flourish and do very well in life. People who talk about them killing themselves never do. It's no joke. If anyone ever says, hey, I feel like killing myself, oh, I wish I were dead, we can't ignore that. That could be the one thing that they're trying to do to let you know, hey, I'm hurting. We don't want to, hey, that's good, I got to get to the class or I got to get to the ball field. Taking those extra couple minutes to find out what's really going on would be very beneficial. When they talk about killing themselves, they're just looking for attention. Ignoring this is the best thing to do. The worst thing you can do is ignore somebody who is at a point in their life when they feel like taking it. Suicide often occurs out of the blue. It's something that's thought about. Plans come into place. But if someone's talking to you about suicide, as we'll talk a little bit later, you need to ask other questions to find out how serious this person is. And I will show you some of those questions in just a bit. Once the depression seems to be lifted, would-be suicides are under danger. Always in danger. Suicides are mainly old people with only a few years to live. People of all ages commit suicide. Sadly, more and more teens are either thinking or have successfully committed suicide. Those were submits that I read to you, but I have some true facts up here. And these are recent. So I'm not lying when I put these numbers out there, and I'm not putting them out there to make anyone fearful. I'm putting them out there so that you understand how many teens have these thoughts, but yet we can help teens through those thoughts. Teens between the ages of 15 up to 24. If you look at the third leading cause of death, it's suicide. Most people in this room are 15 now. And that's third behind accidents and homicides. Some of us are still 14 here. If you look at children between the ages of 10 and 14, it's the fourth cause of death. That's sad. Very sad to read a statistic like that. It's a serious issue in the U.S., and it's on the rise. These statistics are growing rather than shrinking. We're all very busy, and we all have very busy lives that we live, and we've got to get to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. But we can't ignore what we see happening and not do anything about it. Just a few more statistics. 19.3% of high school students have seriously considered killing themselves. Just about 20%, which is 1 in every 5 people, have thought about it. We had 1 of every 5 people stand up in here, we probably would have close to 20 people standing up. 14.5% of high school students made actual plans for committing suicide. And they just didn't think about it. They had a plan in place to follow through. 900,000 youths plan their suicide during periods of depression. And we're going to talk about some of the causes of suicide in just a bit. It's almost 1 million teens recently. Girls think about attempted suicide 2 times more than boys. But guys, boys are 4 times more likely to succeed at killing themselves through suicide. Very dangerous stuff. Very scary statistics. But yet, as we said earlier, you can be the ones that can help the teens because you go to school with teens, you're on the fields with teens, you're in theater, music, whatever the case may be. But here are some causes of suicide. But before I talk about that, does anybody have any questions on the statistics I just put out? Kind of frightening? Do we agree or not agree with them? Anybody? Some causes of suicide, depression. And these first few are primarily with adults, young adults, and middle to late teens. Feeling trapped, feeling hopeless, feel suicide is the only way to handle a problem. But for teens, some causes of teen suicide, divorce. Why might divorce be a cause for a teen to commit suicide? Anybody?
Because since your parents lived so long, you're used to that lifestyle, then after when they divorce, when you might be kind of very deep with depression.
Yes. You could get very depressed if your parents get divorced. Good point. Another point could be teens tend to think it's my fault. I caused my parents to get divorced. But it's not your fault. Your parents are adults and those issues are issues that they're going to need to work out together. But teens take it to heart and think it's all because of them. Violence at home. Why might violence at home lead someone to want to commit suicide? If one's home and there's all violence all the time and being abused, whether it's physically, sexually, whatever it might be, just can't take it anymore. You know, I'm supposed to be in a happy, loving family, and every time I come home, I'm getting beat up. My parents don't love me. How can anybody else love me? Feelings of worthlessness. How might that lead a teen to think about suicide? What do you do now? They think they might not be good enough. Nobody likes me for who I am. I try so hard to make friends and no one wants to be my friend. Just recently I talked with a female that was cutting herself. And when I asked her why she was doing it, it was because of that same thing, her selflessness. Nobody cares about me. And they weren't afraid to cut even deeper because that's what was making them happy. Now, I could have said, oh, that's the wrong thing to do and walk away. No, I cared about the person. And I knew there was an issue there. And I had to get the parents involved, and thankfully we got the hospitals involved. You can't keep these things a secret. When you see these things happening, you know, if you don't take the risk and be that friend to that individual by showing them that love, hey, I care about you so much, I know you need help, I'm here with you, I'll go with you. But you are worthy, you are a good person. They may get mad and you can't think of those consequences because you're doing it out of love. And hopefully at some point they can come back to you and say, hey, you know what? Because of you, I'm here today. Rejection by a parent or friend. Dealing with substance abuse. How might substance abuse be a cause of suicide?
They might overdose.
They might overdose. Not only that, sometimes teens will turn to alcohol or drugs because they don't want to feel the negative feelings that they're feeling. And they think that's going to make them better. And one day it may, but then that drinking or that drugging gets to the point where they can't handle it and it just brings them down that very dark path. And if you see that happening with a friend or someone in your school, and you know someone's drinking or drugging, are we just going to look the other way? Are we going to try to help them? Or are we going to get the guidance counselors in your school involved to help them? That's where you can make a difference. And also, death of a close person to that teen. Sometimes a parent could die, or a good friend might have passed away, and I don't know how I can live without this person. And then those negative thoughts can start kicking in. Those are just a few causes of suicide. Unfortunately, I probably could fill all these pages with many different causes, and you too probably think of many others that we could put up here. But does anybody have any questions so far on this? talked about some myths. We talked about the causes. We mentioned that you're all precious gems in God's eyes, and that you're never alone. God suffered for you. You can always offer your sufferings up to the Lord. He's never, ever going to abandon you. So in this life, you're never alone. But you can always be there for each other. What I have up here is ways that you can be there for each other, so you can look at some signs of what to look for, or even yourself. You might fall into some of these categories. I didn't realize this is going on and that this could lead me down the path. But signs to look for in a friend: a change of personality. And who can tell me what I mean by that? Change of personality. We'll come to you, but I'm going to wait and see if someone back here has an answer. If someone's personality changes, how might we look at that? Yeah. Someone starts to act very differently. You see that person that's always happy and laughing and friendly to everybody. And now you see them walking down the hallways, the heads down, don't talk to anybody. They're sitting alone every day at lunch. You know, the person really starts to isolate themselves from others. Well, that's one sign. What might we say to that person? You have a friend. I like that answer. What else might we say to that person? Are you okay? Exactly. And you ask that person, are they okay? And they say good. Good. I've just been studying a lot lately, and I know I haven't been myself, but I'll be back to myself soon. Remember when Mr. Rappold talked to you last year? And he asked you, if somebody asked you how you doing, what does he say you should always say? Begins with a G, and it's not good? Great. Yes. If we're feeling great, that's good. But what if someone tells you they're feeling bad? Or, lousy. I don't care about anything anymore. No one cares about life's things. Those are things that teens say. Are we going to ignore it? Or what might we do? Anybody? You said that at the top of it. Sit and talk with them. Don't ignore that behavior. Looking at the behaviors, would someone sleep? If someone's constantly losing sleep, or is coming to school all the time exhausted. Because sometimes when someone's thinking of suicide, they can't sleep. Their mind's always racing. And they're always thinking, oh, what's wrong? What might be happening? I've noticed you've been tired lately. Is everything okay? Someone's not eating properly. Again, these are all things that you see people each day in school. You'll see those changes. If an individual has a loss of interest in their friends, all of a sudden you see this group that, with BFFs forever, and now you see 8 over here and one person no longer with them, and isolating themselves. There's a warning sign here. Looking out here, there's many people that are involved in sports and theater, do well in school. You know someone, even yourself, all of a sudden, they've given up on all the things that they once enjoyed. And they don't have an interest in any of those things anymore. You need to ask those, why don't you play baseball anymore? Why are you giving up on theater? Don't ask that yes or no answer. You can just hear an answer and leave. Ask that open-ended question so you can get some information out of them. It'll make things a lot easier, and it can develop that friendship into a very trusted and loving friendship. A recent loss, a death, a divorce, or even relationships, boyfriend, girlfriends, a breakup can cause someone that can be very traumatic, especially if it's the first person that you really had feelings for. And all of a sudden, you're not going to, life's over. If someone says that, we all know the life's not over, but yet we can't ignore that there may be something wrong here. someone who may lose their faith. You know, we can talk about God's always here with us. But if you know an individual that has always gone to church or prays, or you see Christ in them, and all of a sudden they're telling you, oh, I don't care about God anymore. My life stinks. God's supposed to be there to help me. I pray every day, nothing happens. God's not listening to me. If someone really starts to lose their faith, and that's also another warning sign that you can look at and say, well, why do you feel that way? What's changed that caused you to think that God's no longer there for you when you constantly were involved in the church and in many of the ministries? A few things that I want to point out for you not to be afraid of, to ask. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time tonight, but we could spend a lot of time talking about this. If you think somebody is really in danger of hurting themselves, or maybe contemplating suicide, don't be afraid to ask them, you know, sometimes do you feel so bad that you think of hurting yourself? See what that person's answer may be. Be like, no, you're crazy. I would never think that. But don't be afraid of what the answer could be if it's yes. Because if you ask this question and someone says yes, you need to take them seriously. And you can't ignore it. Because that team, you may be the only person that they trust, and they tell you, yes, I am thinking of committing suicide. I have this plan in place. You know, when my parents go away this weekend, I'm going to do it. You say, well, okay, well, I'm not going to be around this weekend, and walk away. They just pour their heart out to you and let you know that I'm in danger and I need help. And if you walk away, they're probably going to go through with their plan. But if they say yes, do not ever leave a suicidal person alone. Hey, I'm here for you. Let's get some help. Do your parents know? I'll go to your parents with you. You can tell them how you're feeling. Or if you're at school, let's go down to the guidance counselor. If you don't know what to do, your Father Steve and Father Bill, myself, people that will listen and help you and point you in the right direction. Because remember, you are not professional psychologists. You're friends. You can't play the role of the buddy. Hey, your secret's good with me. You need to be that friend and show them that love that they deserve and say, you know, I know you're going through some tough stuff and I care a lot about you. And I don't want to see this happen. I want to help you get the help that you need. Remember, as I just said, you're not a professional. Please tell a parent or someone you can trust. But don't be afraid of the consequence, because as we say up here, never to leave a person alone. Or even if you suspect somebody is in danger, even if they tell you not to see someone, seek somebody out. Even if you have to go as far as calling the Mansfield police to intervene and protect this person, especially if their parents aren't home or they're out at the ballpark or somewhere. And most importantly, don't keep that secret. And Father Steve wanted to say a couple words, and this information is here. But I also have some phone numbers up here, suicide hotlines that teens can call. You have the Samaritans that someone can call 24 hours a day, even if you needed to call, or if you had questions. You know, if you feel alone and you really need someone to talk to help you get through some of those feelings, there's a number there as well. But again, as we look at nothing and go out into the need, we need to help one another, help those in need. Get that hand of Christ to them. And who knows, someday they could come back to it and wish you're there to save their life.
Just before you leave, a lot of times you look at
my ministry and you see me in church or you see me in religious ed and you think that's it, the rest of the week I'm off. But a lot of what I do during the week is one-on-one talking with people. I'm not a professional counselor like a psychologist, but I'm a counselor and try to guide people spiritually and through different times and most of the time difficulties in their life. I see it as people sometimes end up in a hole, and sometimes, you know, you can fall into a hole and you can climb out all right. Other times the hole is so deep, it's so dark, and you can't get out. And that's what talking to someone, I think, enables, that you don't have to stay in that hole. And I know that there's people that come to me that will just say, I need to talk, and their life has become this big hole. Most of the time, not things that are their fault, but circumstances in their life, families, brokenness in families, or situations in school. And to try to be open to just sharing that so that hole doesn't get so deep that you can't find that way out. And so, you know, as Mr. Cahill said, I speak for Father Bill as well, we're another resource that you can go with confidence, you can go without fear of any type of a judgment or anything. If you yourself feel this way, when maybe not suicidal, but feel just that you're in that hole. And certainly if you know of someone that's kind of in that situation, to share that with an adult, because it's a lot to hold on to yourself, okay? So please keep that in mind. There's always a way out. There's a choice for life, doing something good, to build life, or to take life and destroy life. So let's pray that you continue to make decisions, not only for yourself, but for your friends, that are decisions of